Hi, my name's Denise. My dad sold my apartment, the one I worked my whole life for, to pay for my sister's wedding. They called it a fair trade. No warning, no shame, just laughter. We raised you, he said. And when I showed up to the wedding, they stuck me by the restrooms like a stranger. My childhood chair, repainted and gifted to her. My name, erased from every photo. But I didn't scream, I didn't beg, I just watched and waited until the day I played my version of the story. For everyone. What do you do when your own family rewrites your life like you were never there? Want to know how it ends? Keep watching. Saturday mornings were my favorite. No meetings, no conference calls, just coffee, silence, and a chance to breathe. I had the blinds halfway open, letting in that soft Austin light that hits differently when the city's still waking up. I was halfway through reading a quarterly report on oil investments when my laptop chimed with a video call. Dad's name. No message. No warning. Just ringing. He never called unless something had gone wrong. I clicked accept. And there they were, Merrick and Vera, my parents, sitting too close together on their couch in San Antonio, beaming like they'd just won the lottery. "Honey, you look great," Mom said, waving like this was a high school reunion. Dad leaned forward. "Got a minute? We've got some good news." That voice, that tone, I hadn't heard it in years, but I hadn't forgotten. It was the same one he used the night he told me he'd co-signed a loan without asking. The same tone he used when he once sold my childhood bike and told me it was for space. He was dressed too formal for a weekend. Mom's lipstick was too red. They rehearsed this. "Celeste's wedding," Dad started, like we were already in the middle of a conversation. "It's really coming together." I didn't say anything. He continued, all smiles. "We solved the venue problem. Finally locked in that estate she loved. Oh, and right, used your apartment. We sold it. Worked out perfectly. Fair trade, right?" I didn't blink. "You sold what?" "The condo downtown. You weren't using it. Got a great offer. Covered the venue and the catering. Isn't that amazing?" Mom chimed in. "It's not like you were living in it, sweetie. And it's all for your sister. You'd do anything for her, right?" I didn't respond. I just stared. They smiled back, as if waiting for applause. I closed the laptop. No words. Just static. And silence. The next morning, a courier dropped off a cream-colored envelope with gold lettering. Inside was Celeste's wedding invitation. Handmade, over-designed, tacky in that rich people trying to look rustic kind of way. The RSVP card was tucked in with a seating assignment. Table 17, near restrooms. They could have just spit on it. Same effect. I stared at it, then flipped it over. Back was blank, like most things they sent me. I logged onto the RSVP site, hovered over decline, clicked accept. If they thought I was going to disappear quietly, they had no idea who I'd become. That afternoon, I sat by the window and let the light shift across the floor. I thought about the last few years. Celeste always had the spotlight. School plays, family photos, birthday parties. Even when she failed upward. I worked. I planned. I paid. Dad used to say, "We raised you. You owe us everything." Every time I sent money to cover their medical bills, or their broken appliances, or Celeste's tuition, he'd act like I was just making up for being born. But this was different. This wasn't guilt or debt or family obligation. This was theft, dressed in a bridal gown, and they thought I'd clap from the sidelines. I went back to my desk, opened the county records, typed in my condo's address. There it was, transfer of ownership, completed, executed through power of attorney, not signed by me, not even forged well. I sat still for a moment, looked at the screen, let it sting. Then I hit download, saved everything in a folder labeled wedding gift. The drive to San Antonio was uneventful, but the silence in the car wasn't. I kept the radio off, couldn't stomach the noise, just the road humming beneath me and the knot growing tighter in my stomach. As Ridgeview Hall came into view, I noticed the upgrades right away. New lantern lighting, stonework redone, the kind of details you don't notice unless you've paid the invoices yourself. I pulled into the parking lot. No valet, no reserved for family signs. Nothing. I parked in the last spot near the back gate, stepped out, and adjusted the hem of my dress. Navy, clean cut, simple, understated on purpose. Inside, the energy buzzed with celebration, clinking champagne flutes, distant laughter, hugs like photo ops. I walked past the entrance table, unnoticed. Not one person looked up. "Name?" the girl at the welcome table asked. I gave it. She rifled through envelopes, frowned, checked under the table, then pulled one from beneath a stack of leftover ceremony programs. "Found it," she said. "Sorry, must have slid under." She handed it to me, name tag already stuck on the front. Rowana. Not Rowena. Rowana. I didn't correct her. I didn't have the energy. The usher led me to my seat, table 17, back of the hall, near the hallway that leads to the bathrooms and staff exit. I walked past tables filled with family, laughter, cousins taking selfies, uncles gesturing too loud. Table 17 had an empty pitcher of water, a half-used candle, and 3 folding chairs. One of them tilted slightly. To my left was a kid coloring on the menu. To my right, 2 staff members finishing lunch before their shift. I sat down. From where I was, I couldn't even see the stage clearly. I looked around. Not for people, for things. The flower arrangements? Mine? The lights strung from the ceiling? I'd coordinated the contractor. Paid in full. The napkins with gold-embroidered initials? My contact in New York rushed the order as a favor, but no credit, not even a whisper. They didn't forget me, I thought. They just decided I didn't matter. The music shifted. Guests began clapping. Celeste had arrived. I clapped too, once, then folded my hands in my lap. I got up an hour in. I needed air or distance. Either would do. As I walked toward the hallway, 3 different people stopped me. "Can we get a refill on mimosas?" one asked. Another pointed. "Hey, sweetheart, do you know where the gift table is?" One man patted me on the back. "You must be new. You're doing great. Tell the coordinator you deserve a raise." I didn't flinch. I smiled, walked off, took out my phone and typed a note. Uniform matches staff. Good camouflage. I am coordinating, I thought. I just didn't get the credit, or the check. Near the storage area, my cousin Ellie, now 15, squinted at me. "Wait, why are you back here?" I looked at her and said, "Because that's where they put me." The slideshow started around dusk. Everyone moved toward the main room. I stood near the back, watching frame by frame. Celeste's baby photos, first ballet recital, her at prom, her at graduation, her backpacking in Europe, her smiling next to a car I helped her finance, her inside the condo I used to own. I wasn't in most of the pictures. In the one I was blurry, off to the side, cropped by a floral border. I took that photo, paid for the trip, bought the camera. Mom walked by, glanced at the screen, and leaned in. "Sweetheart," she whispered, "don't take everything so personally. Let her have this moment." I turned to her. "I already gave it to her," I whispered back. "She just forgot to return the receipt." I walked toward the dessert table, trays of delicate pastries lined up like jewelry. I'd ordered them from a contact in Dallas. Still warm. No one asked who brought them. No one said thanks. I slipped out early, sat in the car, didn't start it, just sat. The windshield was clean, but I saw nothing. "We raised you." The words again. The refrain. I whispered, "You raised a woman who knows how to disappear." I opened the Notes app on my phone, typed the title, Reclamation Plan. Then, just under it, I typed one sentence. "Are you still practicing estate law?" And I hit send. I arrived early, thought maybe showing up before the rest of the circus would buy me a quiet moment, or at least a neutral space to breathe. The hall looked like a wedding catalog threw up on itself. Everything had a shimmer to it, overdone, staged, soulless. Celeste stood dead center under the floral arch, smiling with that polished, social media-ready expression she'd mastered years ago. A crowd of aunts and cousins surrounded her like planets orbiting their sun. I stood off to the side. No one noticed. Aunt Kayla passed behind me, sipping wine, and said loud enough for me to hear, "Celeste really pulled all of this together on her own. She's amazing." I didn't flinch, just noted it. The photographer called for the immediate family to line up for a picture. I took a step forward, out of instinct, not desire. Then I saw him gesture me back. He didn't know who I was. No one corrected him. And I didn't bother. When you're not in the photo, you don't exist. That's how legacies are edited, one missed frame at a time. By the refreshment table, I poured myself a weak cup of coffee and stood quietly, watching people pass trays of hors d'oeuvres like communion wafers. Then I heard her, Celeste, laughing with her friends near the back lounge. Someone said, "So glad your sister could make it." Celeste's voice, smooth as ever. She never really belonged anyway. She was always kind of different. Not harsh, not whispered, just said, like fact, like weather. I didn't move, didn't blink. The woman beside her looked over at me, paused, then looked away. The laughter didn't stop. My hands tensed, gripping the paper cup harder than necessary. The coffee inside barely moved. They didn't even realize it was a betrayal, and that made it worse. Later, as they finished assembling the memory area for the decor showcase, I wandered past the velvet rope. There it was. A wooden chair, white paint, silk ribbons tied around the arms, roses draped along the backrest. A sign rested in front. Built by Dad for the first daughter he ever loved. Now it becomes part of our new beginning. My legs stiffened. I stepped forward and placed a hand on the armrest. I knew this chair. He built it when I was 7. Stained pine, sanded smooth, small enough for my bedroom corner. Engraved under the cushion with 2 simple letters. RS. I lifted the cushion. The initials were still there, untouched. They hadn't even tried to hide it. They didn't just take what was mine. They repackaged it like a keepsake they'd always owned. No one saw me standing there. No one cared to. I placed the cushion back down, smoothed it over, then walked away. I stepped outside into the gravel garden behind the hall. The wind wasn't strong, but enough to pull my hair out of place. I didn't fix it. I leaned on the stone ledge that overlooked the back parking lot. Lights from cars turning in flickered across my shoes. A few minutes passed, then I heard her. "Beautiful, isn't it?" Mom's voice, soft but practiced. I didn't look at her. "You know," she added, "everything came together better than we hoped." I turned slowly. "Do you remember who that chair was built for?" I asked. She paused, blinked once. "It doesn't matter now," she said. "It's just a chair." I looked away and whispered, "That's the difference between us. To me, it never was just a chair." She didn't answer, and I didn't wait. Back at the hotel that night, I poured a glass of wine and booted up my laptop. Opened the condo title again, zoomed in on the signature, the loops, the shape, the pressure of the pen. It looked like Mom's handwriting when she signed Christmas cards. Too fluid to be mine, too careless to be legal. I opened a new document, titled it Asset Audit, Family Transfers. Midway through uploading files, my phone buzzed. Elias. One message. "Need you to confirm something. It's bigger than you thought." I didn't respond right away. I just stared at the screen and thought, it wasn't just my name. They'd taken my past and rebranded it as theirs. I sat on the edge of the hotel bed, laptop propped open, the screen's glow too harsh for the dim room. The wedding was tomorrow, but my mind wasn't on centerpieces or rehearsal toasts. I stared at a PDF document. My condo deed, supposedly signed, sealed, and transferred. Something about the signature had been bugging me since I first pulled it. I zoomed in again, focused on the slant, the softness of the loops. It didn't have my usual snap. Mine were clean. Years of signing reports made sure of that. This one looked rounded, feminine, not in a way that matched me. I opened another file, an old agreement I'd signed for work. Same format. My stroke was sharper, more angular. I compared them side by side and sat back. This wasn't carelessness. This was a calculated, full-fledged fake. Deliberate. I printed the file, highlighted the signature, circled the notary's stamp, labeled the folder, Evidence, Phase 1, then slid it into my bag. Someone in my family faked a legal document in my name, and it worked because they assumed I'd never look. That part hurt more than the forgery itself. That night, I showed up to the wedding Eve dinner late on purpose, long enough for the greetings to be over, but not rude enough to draw attention. Celeste was standing near the main table, phone in hand, showing a few guests pictures of her studio. Finally finished it last month. The shelves were custom. I knew exactly what I wanted. I stood just close enough to hear. She swiped to another photo. A notification flashed across the top of her screen, quick and subtle. A text. From Mom. We'll get her to sign eventually. She won't say no to Mom. The message disappeared before Celeste noticed. She kept chatting, unaware. I didn't confront her, didn't flinch, but my mind was already moving. I remembered a call from months back, Mom asking if I had any extra paperwork lying around related to my property. Said she needed an example of how things were worded for Celeste's prenup. I brushed it off then. Now, it sounded like premeditation. Back in my seat, I texted Elias the screenshot and the deed. He replied within seconds. That text may change everything. Call me in the morning. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in the dark, going over every trip I'd taken in the last year, every time I'd left a key under the mat, every instance I'd mailed home a document for safekeeping. They had access to the lockbox. They knew my routine. They knew when I traveled. They didn't just cross a line. They studied the map of my trust and walked it like a well-planned trail, and then they erased my name from the deed, just like they were erasing me from the family. Dinner moved on. Laughter filled the room in waves. I smiled through it, quiet, unmoving. Across the table, Vera told a story about Celeste's first ballet recital. She painted herself as the ever-present, ever-sacrificing mother. I waited. When the table thinned, I reached into my bag and slid the printed document across to her, face down. She flipped it over, color drained from her face like a wave receding from shore. "You weren't supposed to come back this soon," she whispered. My voice was level, steady. Neither were the people who forged this. Celeste walked up just then, beaming. "Are you enjoying the peach cobbler? I told the caterer to make it a little less sweet this time." I smiled. "It's perfect. Just like karma." Vera's hand trembled as she folded the paper. She didn't speak. She didn't have to. Her silence said everything. After the dinner, I returned to the hotel, tossed off my heels, and started a video call with Elias. He laid out the legal options. Civil suit, fraud claim, a motion to freeze the assets tied to the condo sale. "Not yet," I said. "We wait?" "We wait until they're at their highest." "I want the fall to be public," he nodded. "Then we prepare the file." I uploaded the documents to a private cloud, double-checked encryption, password-protected the folder, named it Trigger File. My phone buzzed again just before I closed the screen. Text from Elias. "You're going to want to see this too. It involves the studio." The morning sun barely cut through the curtains at the old family house. I pulled into the driveway knowing damn well I wasn't walking into brunch. I was stepping onto a stage. Not that they'd admit it, they called it intimate, a small gathering for family only. That alone made it laughable. I walked in and eyes flicked my way, then darted back just as quick, like I was something dangerous someone had left sitting out. My name was whispered, never spoken directly, like saying it out loud might make someone else disappear. A woman I didn't recognize handed me a plate I hadn't asked for, already filled with food I wouldn't eat. I wasn't asked what I wanted, just handed what they thought I deserved. They placed me directly across from my parents. Front row seat, everyone else at the table angled to watch. Dad sat down slowly, theatrically, clearing his throat like he was preparing a sermon. This isn't brunch, I thought. This is a performance. And I'm the villain they built the script around. Merrick stood with his coffee like a preacher with a chalice. "We're grateful to have you all here," he started, full voice, steady tone. "Family is everything, and sacrifice, that's what family is built on." He scanned the room, then landed on me, held eye contact just long enough for it to sting. Some children, he said, voice thicker now, don't understand the weight we carried raising them, but we did it gladly, until they turned on us. The air shifted. Forks slowed. Conversations died mid-sentence. The judgment wasn't loud. It was ambient, like fog settling in. Vera reached for a napkin and dabbed her eye, just enough for it to read on cue. No one said my name. They didn't have to. I stared at my coffee, jaw clenched so tight it buzzed in my ear. I didn't blink, didn't give them a moment to pin the villainy on a facial twitch. They wanted a reaction. I gave them stillness. They were writing a narrative with me in it, but this time, I was already holding the pen. After the food was cleared, I wandered toward the hallway where family portraits lined the wall. We called it the Hall of Roots. They'd just updated it, I'd been told. A new gallery had been installed. The story of us, the plaque read. Celeste was everywhere, center frame, smiling, glowing, lit like a catalog spread. I was in 2 photos, one, the back of my head at a holiday gathering, the other, a graduation picture cropped so tight you could barely see the second figure. My name plaque had been swapped for Family Graduate 2010. I stood there a long time, breathing through my nose. My mother walked up beside me, wine glass in hand. "It's not personal," she said, voice even. "It's just branding for the guests." I didn't look at her. "They didn't just rewrite the legal story," I said. "They edited the emotional record, too." She sipped her drink, didn't argue. Of course she didn't. Outside, the breeze was easier to breathe. Vera followed. "You know your father only said that to save face," she offered. "We just want to move on." I looked straight ahead, no softness in my voice. "You should have thought of that before you signed my name like it was a family asset." She flinched but didn't retreat. "We raised you, Rowena. You're successful because of us." I turned to her, eyes sharp. "Then maybe you should have asked for a thank you card instead of a condo." My phone buzzed. I pulled it out without breaking eye contact. A message from Elias. "Documents prepared. Just waiting for your go." I looked back at her. Her expression was tight, hands fidgeting at her sides. "Next time someone wants to play martyr," I said, "tell them not to use forged ink." She didn't respond. She just walked back inside like the conversation hadn't happened. That evening, back in the hotel, I pulled up the recording. Yes, I'd recorded brunch. My phone had been sitting in my lap the whole time. I skipped through until I found it. Time-stamped, clear, clean audio of Merrick's speech. I clipped it, flagged it, and labeled it Exhibit A. Then I pulled up the photos of the altered gallery wall, printed one, the swapped plaque with the fake title beneath my own face. I slipped the photo and transcript into the same folder and texted Elias. "The story they told, I'm ready to tell mine." He responded almost instantly. "Tomorrow, you take center stage." I arrived early to the rehearsal dinner, hoping to carve out some quiet. The ballroom was already set. White linen, gold-rimmed glasses, music playing just soft enough to let the tension float over it. I carried my speech in my bag, printed, folded neatly. 2 weeks earlier, I'd been told to submit it for screening. They'd said it was just formality, just to make sure nothing overshadows the bride. I didn't ask questions. I played along. At the time, I wasn't ready to fight. As guests took their seats, I was called to the front. "A few words from the bride's sister," the MC said. I stood, walking up with my page in hand, but before I could speak, he handed me a new sheet. "Here," he whispered. "Read this one instead." I froze, but only for a second. I read it, flat words, pre-written praise, hollow. Lines like, "Celeste is the heartbeat of our family," and "Her light guides us all." Not one word was mine. Not one breath belonged to me. My voice didn't shake. But my heart did. Each sentence landed like a bruise I didn't feel until later. I looked around the room. Celeste grinned, Vera smiled like a first lady, and Merrick nodded with a kind of pride that wasn't for me. I could feel my pulse in my ears. The applause came quick, polite. I walked back to my seat, crumpled the paper, and dropped it in the trash beside the table like a receipt I didn't want to keep. I texted Elias. They censored me. No emojis, no explanation. He didn't need one. As I sat down, A memory came back. Mom at the kitchen table, reading my original draft. She sipped her tea and said, "Maybe tone it down. You don't want to steal her moment." That line haunted me now. Steal what? My own truth? I found myself in the powder room, alone. I stared into the mirror, the lighting too soft to be honest, the kind of light that made things look gentler than they were. If I let them take this too, I thought, then I've agreed to be erased. I reached into my clutch and pulled out the original copy of my speech, unfolded it, held it like something sacred. I read it softly. Sometimes, love doesn't mean staying silent. It means daring to speak where silence once lived. My throat closed up, not from sadness, but from almost losing myself again. I folded it slowly, carefully, put it back, walked out, different. Back at the table, Merrick raised a glass. "She was always the quiet one," he said, looking directly at me. "But that's what we loved about her." I didn't blink. Vera reached for my hand. I let her hold it, but didn't squeeze back. Celeste stood up, thanked the guests, smiled wide. None of this would have been possible without my parents. Truly. I watched her mouth the words. Her eyes never met mine. No mention of me, no glance in my direction. A cousin leaned over and whispered, "You really nailed that speech." It was sweet. I smiled. "I didn't write it," I said. "But I'm glad it fooled you." They laughed. I didn't. Back at the hotel, I opened my laptop, uploaded the real speech to a private YouTube link, titled it, "The Words I Wasn't Allowed to Say," scheduled it, encrypted it, set it to release automatically if something ever happened to me, not because I was scared, but because I was tired of burying things. I didn't plan to make it public yet, but it was no longer silenced. Just then, my phone buzzed again. "Elias. We need to talk," he wrote. "The wedding isn't the only thing they've funded in your name." I got to the venue before most of the guests, early enough that the heat hadn't settled in yet, and the staff were still finishing touches. I didn't linger at the entrance. I walked in like I belonged, because I did. Black satin, silver heels, hair pinned back, neat, sharp. Not trying to impress, just making sure no one mistook me for the help again. One of the lighting guys looked up from adjusting the uplights and asked, "You want these warmer or cooler, ma'am?" I didn't correct him. "Cooler," I said. Another woman carrying a tablet walked over, glanced at me, then asked, "Legal counsel, do you know if the license was filed yet?" I tilted my head. "I'm sure someone's handled it." She nodded and walked off. Funny how confidence looks like authority when you don't explain it away. They didn't realize I was the sister until someone at the check-in table asked my name and said it loud enough for others to hear. That ripple, recognition without context, moved through the crowd like a light breeze turning leaves. I didn't clarify anything, let them wonder. Inside, I moved through the prep chaos without touching anything. Vera was orchestrating florals like a general commanding troops, nodding, redirecting, complimenting strangers with that gentle steel she thought passed for charm. Merrick stood near the fountain, laughing too loud, shaking hands too long. Everyone loved a confident liar in a suit. Celeste was glowing, of course, surrounded by satin, lace, and lip gloss. Her dress train floated around her like she thought she'd married into royalty. I scanned the archway over the altar, dripping with imported orchids, framed with ironwork, paid for with funds siphoned from my name, my apartment, my title. Guests passed me without slowing down. Some nodded, but no one stopped. It was easier to be complicit than uncomfortable. I stood next to a cousin who whispered, "You look like you're about to run the show." I smirked. I already did. He blinked, unsure how to take it. I didn't explain. I needed a breath of something real. I found the garden on the far end of the venue, past the catering trucks and staff smoking in silence. She was there, seated alone under the arbor, cane leaning against the bench. My grandmother, Lynette. I sat beside her without a word. She looked straight ahead for a while, then turned to me, eyes sharp despite the years. "They forgot who you were, didn't they?" I swallowed, nodded. She reached out, hand shaking but strong. took mine like it was always hers. "Say what you need to say, baby," she whispered. "Then leave with your head high. No advice, no pretense, just clarity." That was the first moment all week I felt seen. I kissed her cheek. "You'll know when it's time," I said. She smiled without moving. She already knew. The ceremony started just as the sun broke through the clouds. Everyone took their places. Pews filled fast. I sat 5 rows back. Not the front. Not with family. I didn't ask. Vera walked Celeste down the aisle, misty-eyed and proud. Merrick waited at the end, smiling like a man whose hands were never dirty. The officiant spoke about legacy, family, tradition. When Merrick got up to say his piece, he scanned the crowd and said, "We're so proud of our daughter, her resilience, her grace. She is the best of both of us." Then he gestured toward Celeste. "Just Celeste." I looked around. Not one head turned toward me. It wasn't that they didn't choose me. It was that they'd never seen me to begin with. My phone buzzed. Elias. "We're ready when you are. Just nod to the AV team." I stared ahead for 3 seconds, then I nodded. The screen behind the altar flickered. People turned, expecting the usual slideshow. It wasn't a slideshow. The title card was simple. Recorded statement. Rowena S. Time-stamped. Verified. My voice began to play, steady and slow. This is the truth they didn't want told. And I'm telling it, on my own terms. They wanted perfection, and they almost had it. Guests were seated in tidy rows, music soft enough to suggest elegance but not warmth. The fabric-draped altar gleamed under rented chandeliers, and the air smelled like floral arrangements flown in from somewhere expensive. I sat where they put me, middle aisle, 6 rows back. Not hidden, but not honored either. Enough to be seen, not enough to be remembered. My clutch sat in my lap. Inside, the envelope. Thick paper, gold seal. The weight of what was inside wasn't just legal, it was generational. One of the AV techs gave me the smallest glance from across the room. Barely a blink. I gave him a nod. He looked down, subtle. They'd choreographed every moment of this day. But I had something they didn't account for. Proof. They orchestrated a show, and I was about to rewrite the script. Celeste and Joseph stood at the altar. Her dress looked like it cost someone's mortgage. His face beamed with performative love. The vows began. I stood up. No words, no rush. A few heads turned. A few murmurs stirred. I walked slowly, 1 foot after the other, past the rows of relatives who refused to meet my eyes, up the aisle, to the officiant. I handed him the envelope. He opened it, hesitated, looked at me. I didn't blink. Inside were the certified fraud reports, the forged deed, the bank records, the emails. His hands trembled as he passed it off to the AV team. The screen behind the altar lit up. Gasps scattered like wind hitting grass. Rowena S. Legal statement. Verified source. My voice came through the speakers, calm. "Before this ceremony continues, it's only fair that everyone here knows how this wedding was paid for." Images rolled. The bank wire from the sale of my condo, the forged power of attorney, the studio's lease agreement signed using my collateral. Every frame backed by time-stamped evidence. They didn't need to hear it all. They needed to see enough. Vera stood up. This isn't the time. But the crowd wasn't with her. Phones were out. Eyes widened. Merrick stormed toward the AV team. "Shut it off! Now!" "It's streaming," someone whispered. "It's not playing locally." He paused, realized it was too late. Celeste broke, not out of guilt, but because her mask cracked, and image was everything. People began to leave, quietly but decisively. A business partner of Merrick's shook his head on the way out. 2 bridesmaids stepped aside. I didn't smile. I didn't speak. I walked back to my seat and sat down. The ceremony continued, but no one listened. Justice doesn't always shout. Sometimes it whispers, on a looped video file. I stepped into the garden, away from the noise. Lynette was there, exactly where I'd left her. She didn't speak, just reached for my hand. I sat beside her. "Is it done?" she asked. "Almost." Elias called. I answered without excuse. "Ready to execute?" "Yes." He didn't ask twice. Accounts tied to Celeste's studio. Merrick's firm, all frozen. Mid-chaos, Merrick's phone rang. He picked up. Went pale. "They're suspending all distributions," he muttered to Vera. She turned to me, eyes wet, not with remorse, but rage. "You embarrassed us." I looked at her, steady. "No," I said. "You embarrassed yourselves. I just held up the mirror." She turned away. No one defended her. As I moved to leave, I walked past the altar one last time. I pulled a small folded paper from my clutch, my real speech. I laid it down beside the bouquet, not needing anyone to read it, but knowing it belonged there. Eyes followed me. No one spoke. At the double doors, I felt someone call my name. Not Vera, not Merrick, someone else. I turned. 2 weeks. That's how long it had been since the wedding unraveled in public view. Since the video. Since the crowd turned. I hadn't spoken to a single soul from that day. Not Celeste, not Vera, not Merrick, not one of the cousins who sat through the ceremony and whispered behind their napkins. I moved into a small loft in downtown Austin. Quiet, sunlit, not a single family photo on the walls. Not out of bitterness, just intention. I got offers from media outlets. People wanted exclusives, wanted to know what it felt like to bring down your own blood. I declined them all, let them speculate. I lived it. Merrick's firm was under review, quiet enough to not make the headlines, but loud enough to shake his circle. Celeste's studio bled investors the moment my evidence dropped. And Vera, her friends stopped calling. Nobody wants to stand too close when the story turns real. But me? I didn't feel victorious. I just felt still. That afternoon, a handwritten envelope arrived. No return address. Inside was a single note. No Dear Rowena. No closing signature, just, "We didn't know how else to keep you close." I stared at it. Not angry, just tired. They called it closeness, but it was always control. I lit a candle, watched the paper fold in on itself, curl black at the edges, and disappear. That was never closeness. That was possession, wrapped in a family ribbon, and I wasn't wearing it anymore. I didn't write back, not out of spite, just to end the cycle. A week later, I walked into a wood shop 3 blocks from my building. Local, dusty, real. "I need a chair," I told the man at the counter. He asked what kind. "One like my father built me when I was 7. He blinked, then nodded. I gave dimensions, material, finish, placement of the initials, RS, carved bold, no shame. 2 weeks later, I brought it home. Placed it beside a window that faced east, toward the direction of the first apartment I ever bought, the one they sold out from under me. I sat in it, alone, took a deep breath, whispered, "This time, no one can take it. It was mine, built for me, not inherited, not borrowed, mine." I texted Elias, "No need for follow-ups, close the case file." He replied with a thumbs up. I smiled, small, quiet, real. I visited Grandview once more, got there before the staff, before the lights turned on, slipped into the garden. The altar was bare now, just fabric stubs and wilting vines. I walked up, laid down a sealed envelope, addressed in simple handwriting, to the ones who never listened. Inside, the letter said, "You raised me. You also erased me. But I remembered who I was without your version of my story. I don't hate you. I just can't belong to someone else's myth anymore. No anger, just truth." I walked away without looking back. Didn't need a witness. Didn't need applause. Closure isn't something someone gives you. It's something you decide to keep. Later that week, I sat across from a new intern at my firm. Bright kid, smart eyes, nervous hands. She hesitated before speaking during a client meeting. Afterward, I pulled her aside. "You don't have to be loud to be heard," I told her. "Just never sign away your voice." She looked up at me. "Thanks for seeing me." I gave her a half smile. Took me a while to see myself first. That evening, I walked up to my rooftop, coffee in hand. The city buzzed below. I didn't feel alone, didn't feel forgotten. I breathed in deep, looked out past the buildings, and whispered to no one in particular. Let's begin again.